Happy Friday, everybody. Whoa, low connection. All right, happy Friday, everybody. We're here. Today's a special episode, very special. We're here at Damiani Wine Cellars with Michael Cimino, right?
Cimino,
sorry.
That's okay.
And
my family in the South say Cimino,
okay.
but the true Italian pronunciation is like church.
Oh,
so
okay.
Cimino.
Cimino, okay. I'm mostly Irish, so I'm very bad at the Italian stuff.
That's okay.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about the wine?
Sure. Damiani is more than 20 years old now. They started out planting grapes on Peach Orchard Point, which is 2 miles up the road. And one of the things that they did that was very different for the area is that when they came up with this concept of Damiani Wine Cellars, is they planted almost predominantly to red vinifera. And all the neighbors said, "What are you guys crazy?
Right.
You got to grow Riesling here in the Finger Lakes." But we've stuck to our guns, and Lou Damiani, the founding father, original winemaker, and his partner, Phil Davis, the grape grower, they really wanted to make dry reds.
Nice.
And all these years later, we are the highest rated red wine producer in the Finger Lakes.
I read online that you guys were the first ones to get a 90 point in Wine Spectator.
That's correct. 2010 Cabernet Sauvignon Reserve was the first ever New York red wine to get 90 points from Wine Spectator magazine.
What allows, in this area which is predominantly whites, what allows you guys to make that good of a red?
Well, it's a combination of many things, really. I mean, you could say location. One of the things about where our farms are in Hector, it's the warmest microclimate in the Finger Lakes.
Okay.
And they call this stretch here the Banana Belt.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it's actually warmer than
awesome.
any other district in the Finger Lakes. And that's what red grapes need to fully ripen, is more sunshine and more heat.
Okay.
So the location that we're in is prime real estate for grape growing, and it is conducive to reds. We're kind of tucked in this little valley here, and it does help protect us from the cold weather.
Okay.
And also, I think what I should mention is Phil Davis, one of the founders, his dad was a Cornell educated enologist, and he was a grape grower.
Okay.
So Phil, his son, who's partner here, he was able to give his son a lot of knowledge, and they realized that they had the right property in the right area to do it. They just had to be patient. And they actually planted the vines and waited 8 years for them to mature before they started selling wine to the public.
That is patient. That's
Yes.
really patient.
Well, they were lucky. It wasn't like this is like they said, okay, we're going to have a winery and we're going to plant grapes and we're going to sell wine, and all of a sudden we're going to be in business. Lou and Phil had jobs. Phil owns a logging company.
Oh. Okay.
And Lou is an engineer at Cornell. So they had real jobs, and this was like a secondary thing, a great experiment that took off.
Yeah, the side hustle, right? I like that. I like that. That's good. It's good. And you're a sommelier, right?
Yes, I've been a certified sommelier with the Sommelier Society of America for 25 years now.
Awesome. And for everybody watching, what is a sommelier?
Yeah, I'm the wine guy.
You're the wine guy. It's a fancy word for a wine guy.
No, I grew up in the restaurant business. My family were immigrants. They came to America. They landed in New Jersey, and my mother's family opened a restaurant on the Hudson River in Weehawken, and I grew up in the restaurant environment. So I've been around food and beverage my whole life, and the job of a sommelier is there's many aspects of it, but the most important aspect of a sommelier's position is to help customers select the right wine to go with their dinner.
Okay.
The other thing that a sommelier does is inventory control. So you're basically, what sommelier is you're the cellar master. So you control the cellar. You should know what's in your cellar, what is improving with time, when it is time for it to peak and to sell. Right, okay. Exactly. You basically run the wine program.
My dad needs one of you.
I need a bigger cellar.
He's got a lot of wine in his basement, and for a long time I lived in San Diego, and my brother lived in Washington. We've since moved back to the East Coast, but every time he would save all the wine until we moved back, and some of the stuff he saved too long. So we've noticed whenever we taste it, it's like, yeah, this one's gone. So it's always kind of like an experiment when we're all home and he kind of is pulling bottles. He's like, I probably should have opened this one 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, when wine is bottled, it's usually pretty much ready to go. Mm-hmm. Will it improve over time? Yes, it's gonna. Every wine has kind of an arc. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like you might, you know, open it and it's ready, you know, and then it gets better and better and better, and it's gonna peak. Yeah. But eventually that peak's gonna fade. Mm-hmm. And wine that's past its peak isn't bad to drink as long as it hasn't spoiled. But sometimes people enjoy, like, you know, there's a lot of people in Europe that really enjoy a 30 or 40-year-old Bordeaux and feel that you can't drink them until they're that old. Oh, okay. Whereas other people really prefer the more fruit-driven freshness of a younger wine.
Yeah, all depends on your palate, right?
Yeah, and nobody's wrong as long as the wine's healthy.
Exactly.
If you're drinking the spoiled wine and you like that, maybe you're wrong.
If you get sick from it, you're wrong. Hey, Jeremiah, how's it going? So a little bit more about you. You're also a musician.
Former
musician.
I haven't played in a long time.
Percussion, which is awesome.
Yes.
And also an author. You have a couple books here. You want to just give us a quick rundown of both of those? Sure.
Basically, like I was saying before, I grew up in the restaurant business. And I stayed in the restaurant business because that's how I learned how to earn a living. And
it's in your blood.
Yeah, and I've really enjoyed it. I mean, it's a very social thing, you know. I started in the kitchen, you know, and, you know, my first ever job, and I'm not kidding you, I was the assistant to the dishwasher. I wasn't even allowed to be the dishwasher.
Not even the assistant dishwasher, assistant to the dishwasher.
Right, it's a true story. I was only allowed to scrub the pots and mop the floor. Wow. That was my first job. But I worked your way up, and I worked as, you know, as a prep cook and then a garde manger doing salads and then I gravitated to the front of the house. And as I got a little older, I started working in fine dining, which I was much more comfortable in than casual dining. And I was lucky enough to be working for Peter Xavier Kelly in the New York City area. He has 4 restaurants in suburban New York, just outside of Manhattan. And he's an Iron Chef winner, and he sponsored me at the Sommelier Society of America. Awesome. So I did my formal studies there, and it was kind of like, if I'm going to stay in the restaurant business, I should learn something. But the other thing was I always wanted to be a musician. I always wanted to be in the music business in some capacity. So, you know, it was kind of like I did all these jobs like bartending and waiting tables and, you know, being a floor manager in a restaurant and doing DJ work at radio stations and, you know, whatever. I've always done these things because I really never wanted to grow up.
Yeah, I totally get that.
It's all fun.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah,
I don't want to grow up.
Yeah, so I actually did grow up. But
yeah,
not very much.
I'm still working on it.
I'm very short.
Oh, I've got that part down. I'm a little too tall, but
yeah. So to get back to your question about the books, the 2 things I've studied in my life is food and beverage and music. So when I was a kid, my parents wanted me to study classical music, and the trade-off was, because I just wanted to be Ringo Starr, you know.
Yeah.
So, and the trade-off was I'd join the school orchestra, and they'd buy me a drum set.
Oh, that's a good trade.
Yeah. So I was really influenced by British invasion music. Beatles are still to this day my go-to comfort music, and one of my favorite groups growing up, because I'm not of that age where I was old enough to see the Beatles live. I was like the next generation, so I did get to see Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr several times, but George and John, I miss them. But their protégés at Apple Records was a group called Badfinger. Okay. And Badfinger had a very similar sound to the Beatles. They had 5 top 10 hits in the late 60s, early 70s that were on Apple Records, the Beatles record label. So a lot of people might remember Come and Get It, or No Matter What. Baby Blue was used in the Breaking Bad series, and it was a #1 hit 40 years after it was released, and it hit the first time. So people might know Badfinger. And I was lucky enough to meet the Joey Mullen, who is the sole surviving member of the original band that the Beatles had signed.
Oh, wow.
And I was working at a radio station at the time at WZFM in Westchester, right outside of New York City. And Joey came on the show, and we hit it off, and then whenever he was in town, I'd go to see the band and do an interview, have him on the show, things like that. And years later, he wanted to put together his memoirs, and he gave me a call, and he said, "You're the guy."
You're the guy.
And I was like, "Joe, I've only written articles. I don't know how to write a book."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, don't worry, you can do it." So basically, Joey had known me from the radio station, and I also had...
Just going to give an up-close
there you go.
look at that.
So that is the authorized biography of Joey Mullen. And it's probably the only musical project I ever worked on that was successful.
Hey, that's though.
All those high school bands, they were terrible.
Oh, we got one question from Jeremiah. Have you ever paired music with your wines at all?
We actually did do that here at Damiani. We had Mike Trent is a jazz musician from Ithaca. Now, where we're sitting, you and I are right now, is our wine bar. When I was hired here at Damiani, this was just an empty basement, and the first project that I worked on was converting this into a wine bar.
This was a good project.
Yeah, so this is what we call the Cellar at Damiani. And the first thing that we did was put a stage in and a sound system and these sound panels that you see overhead.
I saw that
here.
when I walked in, yeah.
And we built the bar, and I, got all the furniture together. But Mike Trent is a friend of one of the owners. There's actually a third partner I haven't mentioned yet, Glenn Allen. Glenn came in as a business consultant after Lou and Phil opened the doors, and they were so successful right away. They really needed some guidance with the business end of things, so they brought Glenn in. And
that was smart of them to do it, and then instead of trying to do it themselves and then it tanking, right? That was really smart.
Yeah. So Glenn gave them a really good direction with the business, and they liked his work so much that they asked him to be a full-fledged partner.
Fantastic.
And so Glenn Allen lives in Ithaca, and his son is a musician. And Mike Trent is from Ithaca, a jazz guy. So he came in one night and set up his quintet on the stage, and we worked it out that he had all of his music pieces have a flow to the evening. So it would start off very mellow and then build to a crescendo and then quiet again. And so what we did is that with each piece of music, we served a different wine.
Oh, that is so cool.
In the audience, you had 5 glasses in front of you, and there was 5 pieces of music, and then with each start of each song, we would pour a different wine so that you would enjoy that wine with that song. So the music was, whether the music was elegant and light, or the music was intense and in your face, then the wine would correspond.
Awesome. So if it was like crescendoing, you'd have like this bold wine or something.
Exactly.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
There you go. That's awesome. And then there's this other one, right?
Yeah. So I've got crazy stories to tell, but this one is called The Wait Person's Guide to Wine. This was done more than 10 years ago, and everybody's being really politically correct, so I was told, don't use the waiter's guide to wine, because that's the masculine aspect of the word. And don't use waitress's guide to wine, because then you're eliminating the waiters. So it was the wait person's guide to wine. I was teaching wine classes at the Lighthouse on the Hudson, a restaurant right on the Hudson River overlooking the Manhattan on the other side, New York State side, looking at the Manhattan skyline. And I compiled all of my lectures into this brief guide for culinary students.
Okay. This is a good size too. Not to cut you off. This is like a digestible size, right? It's not like a Bible type of.
Yeah,
and that was too much to take in.
That was the whole thing. I remember when I was studying at the Sommelier Society. I'll never forget this. Is that I asked a question to one of my professors. And he went off on this long tangent. And 20 minutes later, he goes, "I think I answered your question." And I was just
where?
So lost. I was like, okay, if I'm ever in that position, I don't want to do that.
Right.
And then you go, if you're studying wine, or if you're a waiter, or you're just getting into the wine business, you can get really lost. You go buy Wine for Dummies, and the book is this thick.
Yeah.
And it's it should be easy. It should be accessible. Mm-hmm. So whenever I do, whether I'm doing wine pairings or I'm just pouring wine for the customers at Damiani, I try to keep it in layman's terms and really simple so that I can break it down for people to really understand.
And I think so. I did do a lot of, not a lot. I did do some research before I came, and there's a lot of good content for Damiani online. And one of the videos I saw of you in there is something that I really liked, and I remembered it, is that you were like, if you have to learn something as an adult, it should be fun. And I was like, yes, I'm so going to get along with this guy. I fall into line with that so much. So I just really like the approach.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's great. Well, thank you. Are we ready to pour a little?
Yeah, I think we're ready. Yeah.
Okay. So I told you, like, the guys here at Damiani, they really strove to perfect the red wine, dry red wine here in the Finger Lakes. Our best-selling wine and our flagship wine are both red blends. So we'll get to those in just a moment. But the other passion here is sparkling wine.
That's awesome.
Lou Damiani will be the first to tell you that we don't make any money making our reserve sparkling wine because he drinks all the profits. that is really what he enjoys the most is bubbly. So we make two. We have a reserve, which is made méthode champenoise, just like champagne.
Okay.
Disgorged and dosaged one bottle at a time, all by hand. And then we have another one that's called bollicini. Bollicini in Italian means tiny bubbles.
Okay.
And this is more of a softer style that's made like a Prosecco, to taste like a Prosecco. It's not made in the Charmat style, which is, the Charmat style would be where you have the whole tank of wine sparkling before you bottle. This is bottle conditioned, where the second fermentation does take place in the bottle.
Oh, okay.
But then they're disgorged in mass by a machine and transferred to a fresh bottle. So that's makes this very economic for us to make.
Yeah.
And there's no lees aging. So when the second fermentation takes place in the bottle, the yeast that's floating around in the wine is taken out right away.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah. Whereas our reserve is completely opposite. The reserve, the current vintage, actually, the yeast was aged. The lees were aged for 6 years in the bottle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another thing I saw online was that I think it was the winemaker was speaking, and that you guys never make more than 300 cases of a wine or something. So there's a lot of variety over the years to your wines.
There's a lot of vintage variation in the Finger Lakes in general because the weather conditions here change. So vintage to vintage, you will get bottle variation.
Okay.
And it's just like we don't have as consistent a weather as, say, South Australia or Chile or California. So you do get variations. So everything that we do at the farm, from the growing point of view, is to shield against Mother Nature.
Okay.
So one of the things Phil Davis insists on is that we hand harvest all of our fruit, and we're very selective. So when you hand harvest, you have the opportunity to actually go out and say, this cluster is not good enough, and it can be turned into fertilizer. And then you take the cluster of grapes that is good. And then when Phil and his team bring all of the grapes to the production barn where they're going to be made into wine by Phil Aris. I know it gets confusing.
It does a little.
It's the Phil and Phil show. Phil Aris is the head winemaker now. He was Lou Damiani's apprentice.
Okay.
He's been head winemaker now for 10 years.
That's awesome.
So, and then Phil Aris, the winemaker, he'll go through the grapes again and take out anything he doesn't like. So we're really about small batch handcrafted wines. So we'd rather make less wine of better quality.
Yeah, so putting this story all together, what I'm liking is that it's an art craft from beginning out in the vineyard to the end bottle here. It's not just the art craft where we're making the wine. It's also in the vineyard. Like we're hand choosing that this bunch of grapes is good enough and this one's not. Mm-hmm. I like that. That's cool. We got a question. Do you do red sparkling too?
No.
Okay.
Just two whites. I just poured a little for myself to make sure that the wine was healthy. Didn't want to serve you any bad wine. But we do have a signature drink here. Now, one of the things we didn't mention yet is that here at the Cellar in the summer, we have a music series here.
Oh, awesome.
So when the wine bar is open in the summer, Thursday night is our music night. We have no charge live music. We always have a food truck. When the wine bar is open, we serve wines from all over the Finger Lakes, as well as Damiani. We serve local beer, local cider, local cheese. So it's a fun place to stop in.
That's so collaborative too. I love that. Yeah.
And that is the way of the Finger Lakes, is that we are very collaborative. That's
why I love it here. It's so inviting. This region is one of the best regions. I've been to most of the states in the U.S. and I had to come back. I had to come back.
Now I'm going to make you something special.
Oh, okay.
Lou, we just got our distilling license recently. Ooh. And Lou Damiani made some blueberry liqueur from local fruit.
No way.
And we make a drink called, our signature drink of the cellar on Thursday night is called the Exi, or Existentialist.
That is awesome. And a great name, too.
Yeah, so this is a blueberry liqueur.
Okay.
With bollicini. And it is simply delicious.
Wow, now, that makes a pretty color, too.
I wonder if anybody...
I'm just going to show them the color, because it's a pretty drink.
I'm curious if anybody that's following here actually knows where the Exi came from, where that name comes from.
The existential, or just the Exi?
That I would call this drink the Existentialist.
I don't know. I don't think so.
No, anybody out there?
I don't see it. Joe Marie, who was in contact with you, says that she knows the girls came to the cellar from Chateau. One question: How do you know that the wine is healthy? So you did mention that you didn't want to serve me unhealthy wine.
Yeah, wine is so low in alcohol; it's really considered produce.
Okay.
It can spoil quite easily from bad storage, too much heat, sunshine, vibration. All kinds of things will damage wine.
Okay.
Basically, you can tell more about the health of wine by the way it smells than by the way it tastes. Okay. So that's why I always examine the corks as they come out of the bottle. I smell the wine, and of course, I enjoy some wine. So
yeah,
cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers. Ooh, that's good.
Isn't that great?
That's awesome.
And on its own, it's beautiful. But with with Lou's blueberry liqueur, it's even better.
Yeah.
The Exi comes from, it's a Beatles reference.
Mm.
When the Beatles...
I should have known.
When the Beatles were quite young and they were in Hamburg, cutting their teeth, they hung out with a lot of German art school students.
Okay.
And the art school students in Germany called themselves the Exis. They were existentialists. And there's a scene in the movie Backbeat where they go into a club with the Exis and they're drinking these sparkling wine that look kind of bluish pink in the black lights, and that's where it comes from. And the great thing is I had the wonderful opportunity to meet Pete Best, the Beatles' original drummer, and interview him. And I asked him, is the movie Backbeat, is it really true to form, or did they take a lot of liberties to make this a Hollywood production?
Right.
And he said, no, that's the story. That's true. They did a very good job on that. And that was really great. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out.
I haven't. So, do you know why he left the band and Ringo ended up coming in?
Well, it was a lot of different things. And you know, back in the day, they called him Moody. The Moody Pete Best, you know. And,
they're both like awesome names, right? Pete Best and Ringo Starr.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
It's much better than Levi James.
But Levi's Libations has a nice ring to it.
I gotta give that one to Joan Marie. I was like, man, I want to do like cocktails with Levi or something, but I need a better name. I love alliteration, and I totally forgot about the word libation, which is a word that I love, by the way. It's just like it just ties everything together. Like drinks sounds so okay, whatever. I'm in a bar, but a libation, I'm like, now that's classy.
Yeah, no, we actually we use the word libation on our menu here for the cellar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, on our drinker menu. Yeah.
So yeah, she was like, well, what about libations? I was like, yes, perfect. Yeah, this is really nice.
Yeah. So that is our signature drink of the cellar, and I don't know where we were. That's the thing. I go off on these tangents. I forget what we're doing. So.
It's perfect. It's perfect. So you just got the distiller's license, and So is this for sale, that liqueur?
No.
Okay. So you can't buy these two and make it at home, type of a thing.
If you bought somebody else's blueberry liqueur, you certainly could make something similar, but Lou's is quite unique.
Yeah.
We have our distiller's license. We haven't gotten labels approved yet, and you can't sell a bottle without a label on it. However, I can open a bottle and make a drink with it totally legally.
Okay.
But I can't sell you a bottle of blueberry liqueur because it hasn't been labeled yet, and the government has to,
Okay.
weigh in on that. And the blueberry liqueur, Lou made such a small batch of it that we really couldn't sell any. We're going to keep it here for the cellar. But our first product that will come out with a proper label and will be a distillate from Damiani is going to be called Gem.
Oh, okay.
And Gem is Pinot de Charon. Pinot de Charon is it's a style of fortified wine in a sense. Like most people,
I really like fortified wine.
Yeah, most people understand like how you make port. You fortify the wine with a brandy of some kind, raise the alcohol.
Yeah.
This is kind of the opposite. This is a brandy infused Gewürztraminer.
Oh, I love Gewürzt.
So this is kind of unique.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Pinot de Charon is a French thing, and
but it's not similar to a sherry either.
Okay. It's not aged that way.
Okay, interesting. And then when's that coming out?
As soon as we get licensed,
and the labels.
As soon as the labels are approved by the government, we've got the federal approval. We just need the state approval, and then we can print the labels and put it on the bottle. And once that happens, we can start selling it.
Okay, great. Yeah. I'll have to pick that up sometime.
Yeah. So I've opened up a white wine for us to try. Even though we're known for reds, we're going to taste our red blends, which is what we're known for. But this is one of my favorite whites that we make, and this is a Riesling.
Oh, fantastic.
The Finger Lakes growing conditions here
I love a dry Riesling.
Are very similar to Germany, so that's why we grow German grapes. This is a unique wine, though. This is what we call the Davis Vineyard Dry Riesling. And like I had mentioned before, Mr. Davis, Phil's dad, grew grapes for Great Western, but he grew predominantly hybrids.
Okay.
And so when Phil inherited the farm, he and Lou ripped out most of the hybrids and planted the French vinifera. The Riesling grapes that Mr. Davis planted 30 years ago still exist. So they never ripped those out. And this wine, every grape in this bottle was born on the oldest vines that we tend.
Oh.
So, and grapevines are unique. They don't grow like trees. You know, trees, the roots spread out. Grapevines, they grow straight down.
Is that because they're looking for more water, or?
Well, it's the way they grow, but yes,
Okay.
they are growing to looking for nutrition.
Okay.
So they're looking for water. So a 30-year-old vine has a very deep root. So the deeper the root, the more minerality that comes through the vine into the fruit itself.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so this wine is so unique because, and we always turn these grapes into the driest version because we're trying to accentuate the earth.
Okay.
And I love this wine. This is my favorite white that we make.
The nose on it is fantastic.
And this is the 2017. This is was officially released this week. Tomorrow is our wine club party, and the members get to basically buy it first.
Nice. Wow, that is fantastic. Oh, wow. That is a really good balance.
Yeah. Riesling, as dry as you make Riesling, Riesling has so much fruit to it.
Yeah.
That it actually gives the appearance of sweetness without sugar. And that's why I love this wine, because the fruit is there, but all that slate on the back end is there too.
I was just going to say that.
It's like all minerals.
Finish, right? Yeah. Oh, wow. That is so good.
And it's really food friendly. You know, Riesling, people forget that Riesling is one of the most food friendly wines. Because Riesling grapes have a very high level of natural fruit acid. Fruit acid can cut through oil in fish and neutralize that and make fish taste more pleasant. Ceviche and this wine would be a beautiful thing together.
I love it with Thai food. Is that correct?
Thai food is great. I actually prefer Gewürztraminer with Thai food because Gewürz has a little more spice on the back end to go along with the spicier foods and like Asian chili peppers, things like that.
This one has great acidity. Like my saliva is still coming, right? This is awesome. in that minerality.
Instagram.
Well, we're not on Instagram. I don't know why it's telling me that.
I was like, what?
I'm sorry. I didn't tell you what I smell on it. But that minerality is definitely there on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, it's very fruit forward as well. Like with the typical stone fruits, I would think. Oh.
It's like
I think the minerality, like he was saying, is setting it apart though. Like the nose on that is not typical to what I am used to. In at least recent ones that I've tried. That is fantastic. I'm straight up. I'm gonna have to buy a bottle of that from you.
Okay.
That's so good.
I'll make sure that I charge you double.
No, there you go. There you go. And I also want to say, if you can see that on the glass, I love your logo. Like the font is so Renaissance.
Well, you know what's there's a story behind that too.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that you were saying before is like, that I always say, that if you have to study anything as an adult, it should be fun. Wine is so much fun because there's a story in every glass.
That's why we're here.
And there's a story about this glass. The logo, now this house that we're in, this is not the original tasting room for Damiani. The original tasting room was in the old farmhouse that's on the Davis farm.
Mm-hmm.
And this house was occupied by a gentleman named Tom Frohnaffel. Now, Tom is an artist, and when he was a friend of Lou and Phil's,
mm-hmm.
and when he moved to Connecticut, they bought the house and renovated it. They turned the upstairs into the tasting room, our retail space, and the lower level here is our event space. Tom is the gentleman who designed the logo and the labels for the original Damiani products.
That's awesome. I love it. And it was funny. So I told my dad I was coming here too, and he's like, "So which winery is it?" I said, "Oh, it's Damiani." And he goes, "I know that one. That's the one with like the Spanish writing, right?" I'm like, yeah. So apparently, back when they were doing the Riesling festival in Canandaigua, I think it was, mm-hmm. He tasted a red. I can't remember which one it was. I don't know if he does. He tasted a red from you guys, and it just blew him out of the water. And he told me he still has it in his cellar downstairs. So he told me to tell you that, pretty
Great.
much. He was like, I love them.
Oh, that's awesome to hear.
So my pregnant girlfriend asked if I'm bringing home Thai food, because that is her favorite food.
Ah.
So I guess now that I have to bring this and pick up some Thai food on the way home.
Joan Marie did mention that you are having a baby. Congratulations.
Thank you. Anytime now. It's actually a boy, so I'm pretty excited.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
My fiance is actually in OBGYN.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's been at the same practice for almost 20 years now.
Wow.
And that's actually what enabled us to move here. Because prior to the short story long, basically as a sommelier and a restaurant consultant, mm-hmm. I was traveling the Finger Lakes for many, many years, bringing New York wines back to restaurants, hotels, and country clubs. Okay. The big farm-to-table movement was, all about, we're going to have grass-fed beef from upstate New York, and we'll grow our own herbs and vegetables, and we're going to be, a New York restaurant in New York City. And you open up the wine list, and it says California, and I'd be like, Chef, no, no, we need to support New York wines.
Yeah.
And previous to that, when I was at going back a step, making the story even longer. When I was at the Sommelier Society of America, I met a gentleman named John Mowry. Mm-hmm. And at the time, he was the marketing director for Wagner Vineyards right up the road here.
Love Wagner, yeah.
And John said, if you want to start learning from the farming point of view as opposed to the restaurant point of view about wine, mm-hmm. you should come up and volunteer for Harvest.
Oh.
So I did that, and that's 25 years ago now. So my first night in the Finger Lakes, and my first night that I spent on Seneca Lake was at this little B&B right next door to Wagner. And the winemaker said, stay next door, you can walk to work in the morning, you'll be overlooking our vines, and you got a view of the lake, they're nice people. Yeah. I was like, okay, that's great. And I remember sitting there after working my butt off in the field a little bit. I think I was raking that day. That's why I was so tired. It's just they were showing me how when you destem fruit,
Okay.
That all the stems come out, and,
And
you
it's
gotta,
something
you
you're
gotta
not
rake
used to
it.
doing,
Yeah,
right?
so, yeah, I'm a pansy now. No, I was, I'm used to like lifting trays, not raking.
I mean,
not raking
with anybody,
steps.
you only like rake in the autumn, so it's just one of those muscle movements you're not so used to.
Right. So I just remember sitting up on the deck there, overlooking the lake, overlooking Wagner's Field, saying, "Man, I could do this later in life." And I always kept that in the back of my mind, and that's what started my love affair with New York wines.
Okay.
So fast forward, in 2001 when the towers fell, I had worked for Peter Kelly at that point for 10 years, and I was like, I need to do something on my own. So I started a restaurant consulting business, and my focus was on fine wines.
Okay.
So basically, if you were starting a restaurant and you really didn't have a lot of connections, I was the guy that you would hire. And I would do everything from, order your stemware to your flatware and
I feel like you would have been good at
china. And I'd order your furniture and order waiters' uniforms, and then I'd hire your staff for you, train them for fine dining and wine service, work with the chef on menus.
Wow.
And that's when I started coming up here a lot on business, and basically, bringing New York wines back to New York restaurants, hotels, and country clubs. So that's the long story of
That's
that.
really cool, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't just show up here. I mean, you have a
Right.
lot of history here, coming and
Right.
and learning about the region too. That's
Right.
awesome.
So we were up here about 7 years ago, and the old inn that I had stayed in next to Wagner had closed years back. It had been vacant for 5 years, and a lot of overgrowth. And we were driving by, and I saw a for sale sign. And I said to Deb, "We're going to buy that house." She said, "You're out of your mind." And I was like, no, I've always dreamed of doing a bed and breakfast. So we bought the property. I was working downstate at Glenmere Mansion, which is a Relais and Chateau property
Okay.
outside of Manhattan. I was the food and beverage director there. And so we bought the property, and then every weekend we would come up here and like start working on the house, renovate and redecorate and
Wow.
take down, cut back trees, whatever it took, And it was when the doctor's firm that Deb works for said, "Oh, you know what? You can do your job from home."
That's what happened with me.
That's when we said, "Let's move up here full time," and that's when I started working here at Damiani.
That's a beautiful story. That's the same thing that happened with me. That's a great employer. Started in California, went to New Hampshire. Essentially, it was the same thing. Like, I wanted to come back home.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing. They're like, you want to work remotely, and it has enabled me to be much happier, and I would argue much more productive even. So that's awesome. That's really cool of her employer to do that.
Yeah, and she's what she is she's a patient care coordinator. So basically, the women, depending on what's going on, they may have to be scheduled to be at the hospital to give birth, or they might have to be at the Wayne Surgical Center in New Jersey for a procedure, or perhaps she's just going in for an office visit. So what Deb does is she makes all the phone calls for the doctors, coordinating the patient to be at the right business or right building, and the same for the doctors. So the doctors know which patient they're seeing at what building, at what time, and for what purpose.
Nice.
So that's how we got here full time, was because of her practice there.
That's a beautiful gift. That's really cool.
Yeah,
I love this area.
We thank them daily that we can do this. It's a great privilege to live in this area.
It is, and it's something I had to leave to fully understand that, just because I grew up in this region. So I'm like, there's nothing going on here. I have to leave. And then I saw everything else. I was like, oh man, I really grew up in an amazing area.
Yeah,
This is a special area.
It's beautiful here. And we got another
Hey,
question.
Daryl. No. Well, our last question was the Thai food.
Oh, okay. You know where you're going after
I
this.
know, right?
So what I'm pouring for you here is our #1 selling wine.
Number one. And
It's called MC Squared, and it stands for the 3 grapes: Merlot, Cab Franc, Cab Sauv. And then we're going to follow that with its counterpart, the Meritage. Now, this wine is one of the newest wines to our portfolio, and it was born out of our flagship wine.
Okay.
So since day one, Lou's goal was to perfect the red blend. So the traditional Meritage blend of the Bordeaux grapes is what he's always concentrated on, and then his apprentice Phil Harris has followed in those footsteps.
And I learned from Susan that this is a whole registered, like you have to register and apply to get this, right? To get the Meritage name.
Yes. The Meritage Association was a very, very smart organization. I don't know how much Susan told you about it, but you know how like you can't call sparkling wine made in America champagne because it wasn't made in Champagne, France? Well, the same applies to a bottle of red that is a Bordeaux style blend.
Okay.
Bordeaux, France is famous for their blends. So if you use the traditional Bordeaux grapes and blend them together, it is a Bordeaux blend, but you can't put the word Bordeaux or Bordeaux style on the label. So these geniuses,
not even Bordeaux style.
No.
They don't even want the word on there.
No. So these geniuses out in California came up with this idea, well, we'll just make up a word. And then we'll trademark it. That's why they were smart, because they trademarked it.
So they made money off of that, right?
Right. So now every time we put Meritage on the label, we pay them for the privilege to do so, because they own the name. But the definition of Meritage is America's answer to the Bordeaux blend.
Okay.
So our flagship wine is Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Merlot, the three main red grapes. Now there's other grapes of Bordeaux that can be used. We use the main three. And this is aged in newish barrels for an extended period of time. So it's a very structured wine. But there was this desire to have a softer version of this that was drinkable for every day. So you don't have to like open it up, decant it, put it in your cellar, wait 2 years before it comes around. So we wanted a soft version of it. So the idea came to us that we would take the same three grapes, but instead of doing with new oak, we're going to use the older barrels that don't give as much structure to the wine.
That was going to be my question. If I wait long enough, you always answer my question.
Oh, well, that's good. And it's also Merlot based, which is a softer grape than Cabernet.
What's the percentages on this one?
They change every year,
okay.
And I get them all mixed up, so I'll have to read it to you.
Oh, okay.
This one, and I don't have my reading glasses. Maybe you can read it.
Merlot 38, Cab Franc 33, and the Cab Sauv is 29%.
Right. So more Merlot based than the traditional one, but it makes for a softer style. And this is only aged in oak for 8 months.
Oh.
So just one season, very economical, because basically we're going to harvest grapes, we're going to make them into wine and going to age them in the barrels, but we want to get that barrel back for the very next harvest.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's only 8 months in oak.
And
so
that's why you guys have a lot of variety.
Very economical for us to make, and that's why it keeps the price point down. But being that it's so soft and easygoing, it's accessible for every day.
Oh,
and it has rapidly become our #1 selling wine.
I could see why, just on the nose. Oh my goodness. I can definitely see why. I love that. There's like amazing tannins, a lot of fruit, and the finish is fantastic. Yeah, it's a soft finish. Like you were saying, it's a softer version, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I haven't had the harder version, but it's a soft finish.
Well, wait till you try the Meritage.
That is really good. That is amazing. What type of barrel? And you answered that. It was the oak barrel, right?
We use, here at Damiani, we use predominantly French oak.
French oak, okay.
The reason why we choose to use predominantly French oak is because we're growing grapes in a very cool environment. Growing grapes in a cool environment means that the fruit itself is more fragile. It's just like human beings. If you're out in the sun longer, your skin gets tougher.
Especially me. I'll burn all up.
So I might get olive, you might get red.
Yeah.
So, but when you grow grapes in a cooler environment, the fruit is more fragile. And oak can overpower fruit pretty quickly. So the difference between the American oak barrel and the French oak barrel is that, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that the oak trees in America are a totally different genus of plant than the oak tree in Europe. So basically, the barrels are made out of the tree, the wood of the trees. The French oak tree has a tighter grain, which imparts a much more subtle flavor and overtone to the wine.
Interesting, because of the grain.
Yeah, the American oak tree has a wider grain and imparts intense oak flavors to wine very rapidly.
More in your face.
Yeah, so we don't want to overpower the fruit of the wine with the oak. So that's why we choose to use predominantly French. We do own some Hungarian barrels, we do own some American barrels, and we use them judiciously depending on what we're making at that time.
Do the Hungarian ones have a wider grain?
No, actually, the Hungarian barrel is the same oak tree as the French, and Hungarian barrels are rather desirable because they do the same job as a French oak barrel because it has a similar grain. But they're harder to get because there's less forestation in that country. But yeah, we use some Hungarian, and the Hungarian barrels that we own actually were made on purpose with what we call a medium-high toast point. Wine barrels are dangled over fires so that the wood staves can bend when you bang the rings around them, because there's no glue or anything that holds those staves of wood together. It's just
compacted.
Yeah. It's like you heat the wood to expand the grain, and then you bang the rings, and as the wood cools and shrinks, and the rings are banged onto them, it makes a seal.
Does that fire char the wood at all?
It does. So what you can do is you can purposely order what they call the head of the barrel, the top of it or the bottom of it. You can have the heads toasted over the fires longer, and that will impart different flavors and structure to the wine.
Okay. Is it more intense if it's charred more?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. And that's where you can get some smoky overtones to wine from the wood. And believe me, I'm not a coopersmith. That is a completely condensed version of how you make a barrel.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. You know way more than me. I find the grain thing really interesting, though. I think I remember that French was less intense than American oak, but I didn't know why. So I love that. That's really interesting.
All right, so now you still have the MC squared fresh on your palate.
Yes.
So let's taste a little of the
It's a fantastic
Meritage.
name. I love that.
Yeah, well, we didn't want to have Meritage 1 and Meritage 2, so
No.
that's MC squared.
Oh yeah, the color's different right off the bat.
Yeah. Now the Cabernet grapes are generally darker than Merlot grapes and have a higher extraction color-wise.
Oh.
So this one is predominantly Cabernet Sauvignon with Cabernet Franc and Merlot. And like I said, aged twice as long.
Wow, that's way more bold, like you were saying.
And this is also from the 2016 harvest, which is the year that we had the drought.
Oh. Okay.
And in drought conditions, when the grapevines are seeking water that they're not getting from rainfall, they're digging deeper into the soil.
So more of that mineral.
Right, exactly. More minerality comes through, and when the vine struggles a little bit, the grapes themselves take on more characteristic, and that's what winemakers are looking for: grapes with character.
It's kind of like people.
Yeah,
like the more you have to struggle, I mean, to an extent, right? The more you have to struggle, the more character you get, and
as long as you don't snap.
Yeah, as long as you don't snap, it has to be a right recipe. Right?
Same as a grapevine, as long as it doesn't snap.
We're essentially grapevines.
So shameless plug from Michael.
Wow.
When we moved up here and we finished the renovations and I started working here, we did reopen the inn as a bed and breakfast.
Oh, great.
So if you're looking for a place to stay, I cook some mean breakfasts.
I imagine you've been in the industry all your life.
My whole life. So so we have 3 rentals. We can sleep 8 total.
Wow.
And we're a TV-free zone.
That's nice.
So if you want to get away from the barrage of media, you want to stay with us. We do have Wi-Fi, so you can bring your tablet and watch TV if you want on your tab.
Checking on those emails.
Yeah, but we don't have like a big living room where everybody sits around and watches TV. We're not into that.
Yeah.
We do have a nice library in the center of the house that has a radio in it. Then you can play some CDs or whatever. You can plug in your iPod.
I'm required to have a library when we buy a house.
Yes.
Joan Marie wants a library.
Yeah.
So.
We also have an antique piano in our front parlor.
Oh. With the ivory keys?
I'm not sure. It's a 1906. We bought it from a friend of ours, and you've probably heard of Leidenfrost Vineyards.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when Liz Leidenfrost bought her new home, she and Arlo bought their home from a piano player, and he had 2 pianos, and he didn't want both of them, so he left one behind.
Perfect.
So Liz put up on social media got this beautiful old piano for sale, and Deb immediately called her and said, we're totally interested. So I said to Deb, well, we don't want an antique piece of furniture. We need a real working instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing we did is we had somebody go and inspect it. And he came back with, yes, this is a fully working instrument. And then we had it professionally moved and brought to our house and tuned. And so if you want to come and play piano at our house, you may do so.
That's awesome.
But it's a 1906 Malin piano that was made in East Syracuse. So local.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's been in the area.
Perfect.
I don't know if the keys are ivory, but it's from 1906. That we do know.
Yeah, so possibly then.
Possibly.
Kudos to Joan Marie for acquiring a library. Does their Cab Franc have a chocolate finish?
The one from 2016. This is the one from 2000?
This is the blend, yes.
It's the blend.
Yeah.
Blend.
Well, the one thing I get from the tan, what we call dusty tannins, dusty tannins refer to when your mouth dries out from the tannic structure, and you can get almost like this sensation of cocoa powder.
Yeah.
And there's a hint of it here.
Yeah. There's a lot of fruit there, though.
A few years ago, Damiani was voted the #1 Merlot in the state of New York. And our 2012 Merlot Reserve that won that award had a lot of that kind of chocolate cocoa powder finish.
Okay.
But that's something that's really associated more with Merlot than Cabernet Franc.
Yeah, I think the one from... So it's not the most recent Cab Franc vintage from Chateau Lafayette, but it was the previous one. Did have a lot of chocolate finish. It was
I don't know what they're pouring, but I need to get over there and say hello. As a consultant before I moved up here, I supported Chateau Lafayette Renault's on all of their wines on all of my wine lists.
Oh, nice.
And the original owner, Dick Reno, who founded that winery, he's since passed away, was a good friend, and I did business with him for about 16 years.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was...
And Tim Miller has been his winemaker as long as I've been known of them. And Tim just does a fabulous job.
20 years or something they were saying?
I'm not sure how many years he's there. I mean, I started coming up here 25 years ago.
Oh,
and
so
Tim was the
more.
winemaker then.
Okay.
So and he still is.
I'll have to go back on the last episode and see how long. Susan told me. I know she told me in the last video.
Yeah, we have a lot of respect for Tim. He does a great job.
He does an excellent job.
And Susan's wonderful. She's the one who tipped me off about you and said, "Oh, you should talk to."
Yeah, Susan's a lot of fun. And so are you. Like, I love everybody.
Yeah, we always have a lot of fun. Susan comes by for bocce night when we have the music on occasion.
I didn't mention that there's this awesome bocce pit out there.
Yes.
And actually, I played with my eldest son. I played bocce with him his first time on Memorial Day.
Oh, wonderful!
But it was
How old is he?
He is. He's going to be 9.5 next month.
Okay.
So yeah, he's a big difference between him and his younger brother to be. But he's going to be an awesome older brother. So
that's great.
He's super patient for his age. Not anything like I was.
Okay, well,
I still am not patient.
Well, when we have the music night here in the summer, we are pet friendly and child friendly.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, he loves music. He's definitely a little musician. He's interested in every instrument ever made.
Yeah, I just wanted to bang on things.
Yeah, that's him too. He really likes percussion and he really likes the piano. Those are kind of his two things.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So yeah, those are fantastic. And if it's not too weird, I'm gonna go back to this. This was the XC.
The XC.
XC.
Yes.
Without saying existential or existentialist, it's.
Oh well, yeah, we advertise it as the XC.
Yeah, the XC. It kind of sounds like something that I shouldn't be having, right? The XC.
Yeah, I'll go back to the bubbly too. Let me put a little blueberry in there for myself.
That is so refreshing. What I like about the bubbles is it's not crazy, right? They're softer.
Well, exactly. That is the style of Prosecco is softer, less intense bubbles.
Yeah.
Than French champagne.
You get the tingly, right? But it's not like, whoa, that was a lot of carbonation I just inhaled. That was fantastic. So when do you do your music nights? It was on.
It's every Thursday night in summer, so it starts with our kickoff party on the 4th of July.
Oh, great!
And 4th of July happens to be on Thursday this year, so
Perfect.
good for us. And we have a couple of local guys who are musicians run our music nights. Scott Adams and Brett Beardsley. Brett does the blues. He hosts the blues night at Rasta Ranch every Monday.
Okay.
Here on the trail, and Scott is a musician from that has a studio here in the area.
Great.
So those guys, when they play here, they call themselves the Bollicini Brothers.
The Bollicini.
And so the Bollicini Brothers are here every week on Thursday, and then on 4th of July for the kickoff party, Eric Aceto, who's quite a wonderful violinist, will be performing with them.
I love violin.
And then in the weekend of the anniversary of Woodstock, of course, we don't know if Woodstock's going to happen in Watkins Glen this year or not.
Right.
But that weekend, which would be the 50th anniversary of Woodstock, we're having our own little music party here. And Scott and Brett are bringing in another duo called the Inner Crazy.
Okay.
Local musicians, husband and wife team from Interlaken. And also Jamie Lee will be performing that night as well.
Great.
So the music will be non-stop Thursday. So they'll just use all the same equipment and just one duo, then the next duo, then Jamie, then another duo.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it
and
should
then
be
you
fun.
serve this on those nights?
Absolutely. The
Nice.
XC will be here.
So be sure to check out Damiani Winery on Thursday nights
Yeah.
for the music series, or come by for a tasting. But definitely the music series. It sounds awesome with the big bocce out front.
Yes.
Well, thank you for going through the winery and the wine with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
It was a lot of fun.
It was my pleasure to plug all this stuff.
Hey, I'm happy to do it. This is awesome. I love it. I love talking about the local. Like I said, I went through a lot of states, and I just didn't find an area as special as this one.
Yeah.
I really want to show it off because I think at least younger people, I took it for granted growing up, and it took me leaving and being gone for several years to be like, wow, that's something special. So anything I can do to show it off, I love it.
That's great. And as Ringo would say, peace and love.
Peace and love. If you don't mind, I'm just going to close out with a song, if that's okay.
I love it.
All right, great.
Well, Martin. Very nice.
Yeah, this one, I got a big bonus one year from work, and I had a tailor, but it wasn't exactly the sound I wanted. It wasn't as warm as I wanted.
Okay.
So I ended up going out and getting this one, and I've never been a huge fan of the sunburst coloring, but Joan Marie pulled this off the wall. She says, "Hey, what about this?" I'm like, I don't know. And I tried it, and instantly I was like, oh yeah, that's the one. So I'm just going to do a song called Midnight Serenade. It's actually, when I met Joan Marie in Ithaca, this was back in 2012, I had just moved there for an internship, and it was the first song I wrote in the apartment there. So
I like interning for.
I was interning, so I'm an environmental health and safety engineer, and I was interning at Borg Warner in Lansing. Yeah.
Lou Damiani, I told you he's an engineer at Cornell. His department is energy conservation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm primarily responsible for the environmental stuff with our company, and it's something I've always wanted to be involved in. I just knew growing up I love the environment. You know, I love going for hikes. I love the rural area. So something I wanted to help protect. So I'm protecting it from the inside. I had this in drop D. Alrighty. So this is about meeting Joan Marie before I even met her. Well, I awoke among your world and found there you stood all clothed in summer's gown,
far from flesh and all consciousness, where certainty is well amiss here. A sash of satin in its crimson hue, and eyelid lace in such wholesome view, a scarlet flush that your cheeks endow. Facade may be, but you're here for now, and I will wish me here again, with the eventide slowly drawing in, and I will wish me here again. A joint of lip I turned my form, a faint creature I'd been reborn, unturned by strange disguise, a fire frenzied in your eyes. Well, hold on tight, for this time must fade. In the dawn we'll break this glass charade. Or maybe I will return and hold, if maybe I could free my soul, and I will wish me here again, with the eventide slowly drawing in, and I will wish me here again. And I will wish me here again, with the eventide slowly drawing in, and I will wish me here again. And I will wish beneath your courts and charms, and I will wish me to the warmth of your arms, yes, and I will wish me with better raises, would once again gaze into your eyes, yes, and I will wish me through the eventide, and feel your warmth on the shape aside.
All right. Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Next time we're gonna have to get some drums hooked up for you.
All right.
Maybe do a different song though.
Yeah. You got to come and do a living room concert here at the Cellar.
I'm down. Let's do it sometime.
Okay, I'm in.
down. Awesome. Well, thanks again.
My pleasure.
I very much appreciate it.
Thank
This was
you.
a lot of fun.
That was great. Really,
Yeah.
I had fun too.
Thank you very much. Everybody, check out Damiani Wine. Is it Wine Cellars or Winery?
Wine Cellars.
Wine Cellars. Damiani Wine Cellars. Here on the, where we're on the east side of Seneca Lake.
Lower East Side.
Yeah,
in
Lower
Burdett.
East Side. Yep, in Burdett. So check them out, especially for those Thursday music nights that start on July 4th.
4th of July.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're right next door to our good friends at the distillery. So if you know where the distillery are, we're right next door.
Fantastic. I saw that driving up. I was like, oh, nice. That's great. All right, everybody, have a great Friday, a great weekend, and I will see you Monday back on Facebook. Thank you. Peace.